What is good, everyone? Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact step-by-step process that you can use to help release trauma from your body. So the question is, why do we want to release trauma? When we release this trauma from our body, not only does our physical health improve, but our physical reality starts to get better as well, because everything outside of you is just a reflection of what is going on internally. Now, we as human beings are meant to feel these emotions. We're meant to feel anger. We're meant to feel frustration. The problem only occurs when we judge or label these emotions as bad. And we often do it because of childhood conditioning. So let's say when you were a kid, your parents said, don't do that. That's bad behavior, when you had an angry outburst. Now, every time you feel that anger come up to the surface, you judge it as bad. Now, energy always wants to be moving and never wants to be stagnated. So when you judge that emotion as bad, it gets stored in your body. That energy becomes stagnated in your body, and this is where the issue starts to happen. Now, with the process of releasing trauma, we don't have to like it. We just have to accept its presence and allow it to be there. I'll give you an example. Like, if you look at a herd of animals, let's say we take a herd of cows and they're being chased by some primal animal, something like a tiger or whatever it might be. Or we'll take a herd of bulls and one of them gets picked out and these tigers start attacking it, but the bull manages to escape. But before it's allowed back into the herd, it's now carrying this trauma of being attacked by the tigers. And it goes through this process of vigorously shaking its body. It is releasing that energy. It is releasing it from its body. It allows it to be there. And then once it is released, it is then allowed back into the herd, back into the tribe, because the tribe or the herd will not allow that bull to bring that trauma into the herd. But we as human beings, we are always carrying this trauma because we don't allow ourselves to feel and release when negative things happen to us. And this is really the purpose of triggers. This is why we get triggered in our reality, why a person, a situation, a circumstance triggers us, is for the very reason of giving us an opportunity to heal that trauma. So when a person, when a situation, when something happens to us, what we deem as bad, and we get that feeling in our stomach, we get a drop in our stomach, a tightness in the chest, whatever it might be, that is a trigger. Now, when most of us have triggers, we blame the person. How could you do that? Why did they do that to me? I don't deserve this. How could they possibly thought that was a good thing to do to me? Whatever it might be. And we get stuck in our mind. And when we do this, the trauma does not have an opportunity to be released from our body. And when we blame the thing that triggers us outside of us, is we don't release the trauma. Think of like a cauldron, and within that cauldron is this liquid, and this liquid represents your stored trauma. When a trigger happens outside of you, it's like getting a spoon or getting a Bunsen burner underneath the cauldron, and it starts to bubble, it starts to vaporize, it starts to activate. And when you get triggered, this is what happens to you, is this trauma comes up to the surface for you to be dealt with, for it to be dealt with. So I'm going to share with you how you can actually release this. And the key is presence. When you are truly present with an emotion and you don't label it as bad, this is what is known as transmutation. You are releasing it from your energetic field. So let's say, for example, we have our stick man or our stick woman. And something happened to you in the past that caused this trauma. And this trauma could be in the form of doubt, anger, fear, impatience. And I will also note as well, a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily ours. We have been on a process of evolution as human beings. You know, our ancestors have been through many, many things, and much of their emotional patterns have been passed down onto us for a basis of survival. So, a lot of that fear or, that impatience or that anger is not necessarily ours. But when we go along and we release it, things in our life can become a lot better. So when something triggers you outside of yourself, they might trigger that impatience, that fear, that anger, whatever it might be. That is an opportunity to start feeling it, to allow it to be there. And we need to switch our perspective of this is happening for me. This is actually a good thing. Because when we label an emotion as bad or negative, we push it down within us. So when we get triggered, be thankful, because it's an opportunity for you to start releasing what no longer serves you. But like I said, the key is present. So how do we become present with that trigger when it happens to you? Now, when you are triggered, it might happen, or you might last for a day or two, even a week, or even a month if it's a really heavy trigger. And if you're holding a lot of fear, a lot of impatience, or a lot of anger, whatever it might be, it's going to require more than one trigger to keep releasing that trauma from your body. But like I said, the key is presence. So when that anger comes up, what a lot of us do, because it's based in the lower three energy centers, that of survival, it goes up into our mind. Now, the mind doesn't quite know how to deal with emotions. And this is when we get stuck in those thought forms of the future or the past. Will this work out for me? Is this a good idea? I shouldn't have done that. I should have taken that path instead. So when that emotion gets triggered, notice how it goes up into your mind, and your mind starts to focus on the past or the future. When you're focused on the past or the future, you are not present. So what we need to do is we need to get out of our mind and back into our body, because when we go into our mind, we get caught in this cycle of thinking and feeling and thinking. Now, when you start having all of these thoughts, that's going to trigger more of the same emotion, and you're stuck in this cycle and you can't seem to get out of it. So the key is, when you are triggered, when you feel that trigger in your body, get out of your mind and into your body and start to feel it. Notice where it is and stay with it. Now, it is uncomfortable. This is why people don't want to do it. This is why people try and distract themselves with drugs, alcohol, overworking, the next type of relationship, because they don't want to feel that emotion. Many times people struggle meditating because when they are meditating, they are actually still and relaxed. And your body now sees this as an opportunity to start bringing that stuff up to the surface for you to feel it. And this is why it feels uncomfortable to meditate sometimes. So what you need to do is get out of your mind and feel it. Stay with it. Now, when you stay with it, it might start to bring these emotions up to the surface. You might feel like, hitting something, or maybe having a cry, or whatever it might be. This is totally normal. This is okay. This is the trauma leaving your nervous system, and your body is experiencing the trauma. So that's why it feels so emotional, because it's coming out of your nervous system, and you need to allow it to be there in order for it to be transmuted, in order for you to release it from your energetic field. Now, sometimes the emotion or the trigger can be so overwhelming and we can't seem to get out of our mind. That's okay. We can also use presence when we have obsessive thoughts and obsessive thinking, because when it's triggered, our body will go into fight or flight, and our mind will start thinking about the past and the future. Now, when it comes to this, you need to remember who you truly are. You are not your mind, you are not your body. It is just an aspect of who you are. Who you truly are is the presence behind your mind and behind your emotions. Anyone who's meditated for long enough will start to connect with a part of themselves that just simply observes the mind, and it doesn't label things as good or bad. So it's the I am presence, your true self, the consciousness. And this is the power, because once you start to tap into this part of yourself, this is what allows your healing journey to become so much quicker. So if you find the emotion is too overwhelming and you can't stay within your body to feel it, You're going to have those obsessive thoughts, nag, 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 nag. That's fine, that's okay. Just watch the mind do it. Just see the mind spin off. It's doing this process of going through or trying to deal with that emotion. We just simply need to watch the mind without judgment. And if we can truly do that, that is also transmuting it. And it will also get to a point of releasing. Usually what happens is when we have a trigger, we feel emotions such as anger, frustration, impatience, and then it will usually lead to a higher emotional state. We'll suddenly have an outburst, or we'll want to cry, or we'll want to do something to release it. And you'll always notice these patterns when you are healing. So it usually starts off with a trigger, it's more intense, it's more fiery, and then you have a release. When you have a release, that is the healing of the trauma. It has now left your energetic field. So when you get triggered, change your perception and see it as an opportunity to heal, because that is what the universe is trying to do for you. It's saying, look, let's try and release what no longer serves you anymore by getting into your body and feeling and staying with it. And yes, it is uncomfortable, but this is how we do it. If it's too intense and the emotional reaction is overwhelming and it goes into our mind, just watch the mind spin off. Don't try and change the mind. Don't try and change the thoughts. Don't try and think, oh, I have to be positive, because that's not going to work. Your brain is now switched into survival mode. So just watch the mind. And as you can do this, the mind will start to filter away. And through that presence, again, you are still releasing that trauma from your body. So I hope this information has helped you. Thank you for watching. Peace and take care.